Chapter 1106. Gu Xingyin asked, "If I were to say something like that to you, how would you react? Would you cry and run out?" Cece thought for a moment. "I wouldn't cry, right? I'd probably ignore you." Gu Xingyin nodded. That was a normal reaction. If a normal girl was said to hate someone of the same sex, even if it was someone as gentle as Cece, she'd probably just ignore it with a cold face. If she had a fiery temper, she'd probably go up and fight with the other person, running out with tears of sadness, or something like that. This was obviously an unusual scene. The first class was the form teacher's class. Changru was still comforting her hurt heart in some corner. The form teacher had always been very concerned about this kind of obedient student. She hurriedly asked her what was wrong. Then, as Gu Xingyin expected, Gu Xingyin was called to the teacher's office. In the office, Gu Xingyin saw Changru with red eyes. Obviously, the form teacher had found this good student. The form teacher was comforting Changru softly. When she saw Gu Xingyin, her expression immediately became serious. "Zhongzhanghuan, students should love and help each other. Look at what you've done to Changru to make her so sad." Gu Xingyin's expression was calm. "Teacher, I only told the class monitor that I don't like her." The form teacher obviously didn't expect her to be so honest. Gu Xingyin was even more honest. She looked at the form teacher and said sincerely, "Teacher, the class monitor, and I really don't get along. I just don't like her. There's nothing I can do about it. I told the class monitor that I don't like her. She probably doesn't like me either. I'm a bad student. It's better not to affect a good student like the class monitor." Changru looked at Gu Xingyin with red eyes. "Zhanghuan, I don't dislike you." Gu Xingyin interrupted her. "Class monitor, please call me Zhongzhanghuan. I'm not that close to you." Changru's tears that had just dried up fell again. The form teacher was speechless when she saw this. In the office in front of her, Zhongzhanghuan was not even willing to give her face. She really believed that Zhongzhanghuan did not like Changru. This kind of thing is not something that can be changed just by teaching her a lesson. The homeroom teacher looked at Changru, who was still crying inside. In the end, Gu Xingyin was punished to be on duty for a week. The reason was that she did not treat her classmates well. Strictly speaking, there was no right or wrong in this matter. However, in the eyes of a teacher, the good student he liked and the bad student, who always gave him a headache, couldn't be treated equally. Gu Xingyin did not care about this. The effect she wanted was to let everyone, including her teacher, know that she didn't like Changru. She glanced at the head teacher and Changru in the office and said calmly, "Teacher, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Class is about to start." If Changru had been a prideful girl, she would have hated her to death. However, to Gu Xingyin, she would rather someone like Changru hate her than like her. When Gu Xingyin returned to the classroom, Cece looked at her nervously. "Zhanghuan, are you okay?" Gu Xingyin smiled and shook her head. "What could be wrong? I didn't do anything to her." Cece thought about it and agreed. At the same time, she felt that the class monitor was indeed a little too sensitive. During the third period, Changru finally returned to the classroom. She did not look in Gu Xingyin's direction. It looked like she really hated her in her heart. After the fourth period, Gu Xingyin asked the system and went straight to the cafeteria. In fact, even without the system's reminder, she could find Lin Zhe at a glance. Some people had charisma that could be seen at a glance in a crowd. Chapter 1107. Moreover, in the dense crowd, the area around his seat was empty, which was extra conspicuous. No one could ignore the cold air coming out of his body and sit beside him. "Good afternoon, Linza." She walked over with a smile and sat opposite him without a care. Gu Xingyin swore that for a moment, she definitely heard the sound of gasps around her. Was it that scary? She found it funny. Could it be that Linza could eat people? Linze paused in the middle of eating. He raised his head and looked at Gu Xingyin coldly. Gu Xingyin didn't seem to notice his unhappy gaze, and returned him a bright smile. "Linza, how could there be such a girl who didn't know how to read the situation?" he said coldly. "I don't like people sitting beside me, especially when I'm eating." Gu Xingyin smiled and put a sweet and sour pork rib into her mouth. Oh, it was delicious. Linza's chopsticks clattered on the plate. He was very depressed, but he didn't know how to get angry at a girl. Gu Xingyin looked at him and asked strangely, "Why aren't you eating? The food will be cold later. It's not a good habit to waste food." "Linza, I can't eat when there's someone beside me." He meant that she could leave now. Gu Xingyin completely ignored him. What a joke. If I really listened to you and left, how could I play in the future? She put down the chopsticks in her hand and looked at Linza seriously. She said earnestly, "Then you have to change this habit. This isn't your home. Other than your parents, no one has the obligation to accommodate you." Linza. Did this girl really not understand what he was saying, or was she pretending to be stupid? He thought about her words and actions, and confirmed that it was the latter. He silently picked up the plate in his hand, and prepared to get up. How could he still be in the mood to eat? However, Gu Xingyin saw through his actions. She quickly finished the last bite, and stopped Lin Zai's actions. "Hey, look at you. You didn't touch anything at all. Is there a need to be so serious over such a small matter?" She looked at him dotingly and said, "If you really feel that bad, I'll leave, okay? Don't skip meals. You'll be the one hurting yourself. I like you so much that my heart aches when I see you like that." After she finished speaking, she didn't wait for Lin Zai to react, and left with the tray. Lin Zai, who didn't know whether to leave or stay. The onlookers. So this was possible. Their knowledge had really increased. In the end, Lin Zai still sat down, and finished the food on the plate one bite at a time. However, when everyone saw his expression, they couldn't help but shudder. It was as if he had just eaten something extremely disgusting. After teasing Lin Zai, Gu Xingyin returned to the classroom in a good mood. Then, Changru stopped her at the door of the classroom. "Gu Xingyin, this big sister, weren't you ignoring me? I've already made it so obvious, yet you still came looking for me." It's simply, Gu Xingyin couldn't find the right words to describe it. But this time, Gu Xingyin was really wrong. Changru only looked at her coldly. "Zhongzhonghuan, where's your homework from yesterday?" Homework. Gu Xingyin was confused and at a loss. When she got home yesterday, she was so focused on talking to her dad that she didn't remember about homework. Chapter 1108. Changru knew what was going on just by looking at her face. She said coldly, "There are school leaders coming over for an inspection today. Yesterday, the homeroom teacher specifically reminded you. Zhongzhonghuan, wait for the homeroom teacher to call you into her office." With that, she turned around, leaving Gu Xingyin with a cold back view. Gu Xingyin returned to her seat. Her deskmate Cici leaned over and said, "The school leaders won't check your homework. Zhanghuan, I'll tell you where the homework is. Finish it later and send it to the office." Gu Xingyin shook her head. "Forget it. The homeroom teacher will probably know that I didn't do my homework soon." Sure enough, the homeroom teacher criticized Gu Xingyin in the next class. She told her in front of the whole class that if there was a next time, she would directly call her parents. Gu Xingyin gave Cici a helpless look. "See, I knew it." As the class monitor, it was easy for Changru to catch her small mistakes. Similarly, if Changru was determined to teach her a lesson, it wouldn't be difficult for him either. Gu Xingyin sighed in his heart. This time, she probably really hates me because of her love. Gu Xingyin obediently did her homework, and went to the office with a good attitude to admit her mistakes. She also said that she would definitely pay attention in class, and finish her homework on time. Her good attitude made the homeroom teacher feel that it was abnormal. She looked at Gu Xingyin's completely different style of dressing these 2 days. Although it was still a little too much for a student to pursue beauty and maturity, it was much better than before. Could it be that this student had really turned over a new leaf? No homeroom teacher and student union were enemies. Naturally, they hoped that their students would change for the better. Seeing her like this, the homeroom teacher didn't make things difficult for her. Instead, she gently comforted her that it was fine as long as she knew her mistakes and could change. Gu Xingyin walked out of the office with a smile on her face. But when she returned to the classroom, the expression on her face was back to the usual mocking half-smile. No one could tell what she said to the teacher in the office. Seeing her like this, Changru sneered inwardly. Zhongzhonghuan, I'm nice to you, but you don't care. Didn't you say that you wanted us to hate each other? I'll do as you wish, but I don't know if you can bear it. Cici was a little worried about her. Cici and Zhong Zhanghuan had been deskmates for 2 months. At first, she was quite afraid of this girl with a bad reputation. But later she realized that although Zhong Zhanghuan looked a little difficult to get along with, she was actually quite a nice person. Once, a boy in class bullied her, and her deskmate returned the favor on the spot. Zhanghuan often brought her chocolates. Moreover, the current Zhanghuan had become better than before. He no longer ignored people like before, but he was a little. She blushed and touched her face. She just liked to tease herself. What Cici didn't know was that Gu Xingyin found her bashful and cute. Her face was as red as an apple, so she liked to pinch her cheeks. Oh, it felt so good to the touch. When Cici saw Gu Xingyin return to her seat, she asked worriedly, Zhanghuan, did the homeroom teacher make things difficult for you? Gu Xingyin shook her head. Don't worry. I'll be fine. Their seats were in the second row on the left side of the classroom, while Chang Ru's seat was in the third row in the middle. Chang Ru could see the two of them whispering intimately when he looked up. Her pen drew a line on the paper fiercely. Chapter 1109. Lindsay. Lindsay turned around and saw his good friend running towards him. His good friend Song Tao and Lindsay were childhood friends. Their families were very close, and they were in the same high school, but they weren't in the same class. Lindsay, I heard. Song Tao looked at Lindsay mysteriously. That Zhong Zhanghuan from class 2 is chasing you? Lindsay frowned. Don't talk nonsense. How do you know? Song Tao clicked his tongue. How is it nonsense? Ask around. It's spread throughout the school now. Who doesn't know that Zhong Zhanghuan from class 2 fell in love with the school hunk Lindsay at first sight? She goes to look for you every day. For you, she's even starting to study hard. Seriously? Song Tao suddenly said. Actually, Zhong Zhanghuan is really pretty. I heard that she doesn't fight or skip class anymore. She's wholeheartedly focused on being a good student. She probably really likes you. Lindsay's expression didn't change. What does that have to do with me? Song Tao looked at his good friend's cold side profile and couldn't help but sigh. I pity this girl. She's destined to fall out of love with you, this iceberg that won't melt. I don't know who can move your heart of stone. Lindsay didn't say anything. In class 2's classroom, Gu Xingyin sat seriously while Cici explained a math question to her. She solved the question correctly according to what Cici taught her. Zhanghuan, you're really smart. You can solve any question after just one explanation. Cici looked at Gu Xingyin in amazement. Gu Xingyin smiled and didn't say anything. How was she smart? She knew how to solve these questions. But in order not to arouse suspicion, she had no choice but to ask Cici one by one. Before Chang Ru walked out of the classroom, she couldn't help but glance at their seats. She watched as Zhong Zhanghuan changed her dressing style for that boy, and started to listen to class seriously and study hard. All of this was because she heard that the boy liked girls like that. Chang Ru pressed his hand to his chest in a daze. She actually still liked Zhong Zhanghuan. If she really didn't like her, why would she ruin her outstanding image and make things difficult for her? If she really didn't like it, just as Zhong Zhanghuan had said, the two of them had already gone their separate ways. But now, she liked him so much that she was willing to change herself for him. Would there really be a result for her liking him? She shook her head. If she were a man, she would have pursued Zhong Zhanghuan no matter what price she had to pay. However, Zhong Zhanghuan clearly had a normal personality. Was he really going to risk everything to bring her onto this path? For the first time, she felt a struggle. All right, thank you, Cici, for delaying your break time after school. By the time the two of them finished talking, the classroom was already empty. Cici smiled. That's nothing. You're studying hard now. The teacher even praised me. Speaking of this, she blushed a little. Everyone knew why Zhanghuan had become like this. But the teacher didn't know that. He thought that it was his good student who had influenced Zhanghuan and made her work hard. Speaking of which, Cici looked at Gu Xingyin with some heartache. She was doing this for Linza, but the other party was still as blunt as ever. Zhanghuan, how are you and Linza now? She couldn't help but ask. Chapter 1110. Gu Xingyin's expression darkened, and Cici caught sight of it. She already knew the answer. But Gu Xingyin quickly perked up. That's it. It's not like I don't know how hard it is to woo the schoolbeau. I'm already prepared for a long battle. Cece looked at her carefree expression and laughed. I wish you all the best. Gu Xingyin looked certain. Of course. After saying goodbye to Cece, Gu Xingyin returned home. Actually, all of this was just a facade she had created. She did like Linza, but she wouldn't lower herself to such a level for him. On one hand, it was to show Changru that she liked men, and that it would never be possible with her. On the other hand, it was to show her father that Zhong Zhanghuan was rebellious, but Gu Xingyin didn't want her father to go through 3 years of exhaustion. She would try her best to be a good daughter, that her father would be proud of. Also, her final goal was to let Zhong Zhanghuan walk the path she should have walked, and become the hand of God in the field of design. If she wanted to do it, she would do it to the best of her ability. She would slowly change, until the day she finally transformed. As for Linza, she was sincere in chasing him. But if he was always like this, Zhong Zhanghuan wouldn't be able to keep her eyes on him for the rest of her life. Huan, your Uncle Chen's family has a wedding banquet tomorrow. Are you going with Dad? Zhang Zhiping looked at Gu Xingyin expectantly. This gaze made Gu Xingyin's heart ache. In the original owner's memory, she hadn't attended any parties with her father in a long time. Outsiders only knew that Chairman Zhong had a daughter, but they had only heard of her name and never seen her in person. Every time, people would laugh and say that Chairman Zhong treasured his daughter too much and couldn't bear to let her out to meet people. Only Zhang Zhiping smiled bitterly. In the past, Huan was young, but now that she was older, she didn't want to attend these parties with him at all. How could he be reluctant? It was obvious that he couldn't get her to move at all. Of course. Gu Xingyin smiled brightly. I've never been Dad's date before. Zhang Zhiping also laughed. After Gu Xingyin went upstairs, he rubbed his eyes. She had almost shed tears in front of her daughter. But he was really happy. She had never been so happy before. His daughter was finally sensible. She began to study hard and think for him. It was as if she had become the little princess who loved to stick to him and let him kiss and hug her. The next day was the weekend. Gu Xingyin woke up early in the morning. Zhang Zhiping had already hired a stylist for her. Gu Xingyin was happy and relaxed. She sat there and let the stylist dress her. Miss Zhong is so beautiful. The stylist's eyes were full of admiration. In her line of work, not only did she have to be good at fighting, she also had to be good at talking. She had said this to countless socialites and young ladies, both sincere and hypocritical. But this sentence was undoubtedly sincere. When she first saw Gu Xingyin, she hesitated for a moment. This Miss Zhong's temperament was too unruly. With such an aura, wearing a standard gown might not be a suitable choice. However, she was about to attend a wedding banquet, not a fashion week. It wasn't suitable for her to be too unique. However, after the makeup was done and the gown was put on, she realized that the person in front of her had changed. It was said that he only had one daughter, who was about the same age as him. She had always been well protected. Lin Zhe, the young lady holding his hand, looked somewhat familiar. The two of them had an intimate posture. Looking at Patriarch Zhong's expression, he seemed to dote on the girl. She was probably his legendary daughter. Wait a minute. Lin Zhe's eyes suddenly widened. He knew why this girl looked so familiar. For an entire month, Zhong Zhanghuan would come and pester her every day. She was actually the daughter of the Zhong family? Lin Zhe carefully looked at Gu Xingyin. Today, Zhong Zhanghuan was wearing a luxurious high-end dress. She stood quietly beside Father Zhong and greeted the people around her with a sweet smile. Her posture and etiquette were all in line with the temperament of a young lady from an aristocratic family. She was completely different from the arrogant Zhong Zhanghuan in school. It was a 7 of hearts. The two of them looked at each other, and the people around them started to jeer. The topic of these two people had been circulating for more than 2 years. Lin Zhe's expression wasn't very good. Gu Xingyin didn't move either. Song Dao looked and said, Lin Zhe, you can't even afford to play such a game? It's not a big deal. Our beauty Zhanghuan didn't even say anything. Lin Zhe lowered his head. Only he knew how fast his heart was beating at this moment. It wasn't that he was unwilling, but he was nervous. Seeing that Lin Zhe didn't move, the atmosphere in the room became gloomy. She said faintly, "You don't have to mind. This kind of thing is more of a prank. If it were me, I wouldn't be willing either." Her expression was very calm when she spoke, and it was impossible to tell that she was in a bad mood. Lin Zhe was still frowning, as if he wasn't satisfied with such an answer. Gu Xingyin looked at him and joked. "What? Could it be that when you think about it later, you feel that you lost a chance to be intimate with a beauty like me? Or did you suddenly realize that you like me?" Chapter 11:19. As a close friend of Lin Zhe, Song Dao quite liked Zhong Zhanghuan. After all, they were brothers. Everyone hoped that he could find a good girlfriend, right? According to the situation of the Lin family, it was best if Lin Zhe's future wife was someone who could help him. Rather than marrying a woman who didn't know anything, Zhong Zhanghuan, who knew her background and had a strong family background, was undoubtedly the best choice. Putting that aside, Li Yundong's expression changed drastically. Song Dao still said the same thing. "Lin Zhe, in this world, there might never be a girl like Zhong Zhanghuan who likes you as much as she does now." As a brother, he hoped that Lin Zhe could be happy. Of course, if Lin Zhe really didn't like Zhong Zhanghuan, he wouldn't force him. When it came to relationships, it was naturally about mutual consent. If Lin Zhe didn't like her, even if Zhong Zhanghuan loved him so much that she was willing to die for him, it would still be a passion. But looking at it now, Lin Zhe clearly didn't have no feelings for Zhong Zhanghuan. Song Dao was his good brother, so Lin Zhe didn't hide it from him. "I think I might like her a little, but I'm not sure if this like can make me decide to continue walking with her." Song Dao looked at him with a gaze that was a little exasperated at his failure to live up to expectations. To be able to make Lin Zhe say such words, it proved that he definitely liked Zhong Zhanghuan in his heart. In this day and age, if you were a man, just go straight to her if you liked her. What were you still blabbering about? Song Dao really wanted to say this to Lin Zhe directly, but thinking about it, he couldn't. It was better to beat around the bush. Thus he asked, "How do you feel when you think of Zhong Zhanghuan?" Lin Zhe thought for a moment and frowned. "I don't think I feel anything." Song Dao held his forehead. He asked in a different way, "You haven't seen each other since that gathering during winter break, right? Do you think of her? Do you think of her often?" Lin Zhe nodded. He would think of Zhong Zhanghuan every day. Song Dao continued to ask, "After school started, Zhong Zhanghuan didn't come to look for you. How do you feel? And now, the school is saying that Zhong Zhanghuan didn't get a response for more than 2 years and finally let go of this relationship. How do you feel when you hear these words?" The temperature around Lin Zhe suddenly dropped. He replied, "For the first question, I'm a little frustrated and depressed. For the second question, I'm very angry." That was the obvious answer. Song Dao sighed. It was already so obvious, yet he was still considering it. In the end, he used his trump card. "Lin Zhe, think about it again. If one day, Zhong Zhanghuan doesn't like you and likes another man, what will you do?" Lin Zhe imagined the scene that Song Dao described, and his expression immediately became very bad. Just the thought of it was unbearable. Chapter 11:24. Lin Zhe's heart felt empty. No one would understand what it felt like to be full of passion, only to have a wave of cold water poured over you. Song Yao sighed. "Can you find Zhong Zhanghuan's current contact information? If you can go and talk to her." Lin Zhe shook his head. "I just tried. Her phone number has changed, and she's not online on social media. She must have changed everything when she left the country." None of this was important. What Lin Zhe was most worried about was what kind of feelings Zhanghuan had when she left. Would she think that he had deliberately stood her up and had completely given up on him? It was a brand new world overseas. Would she meet someone she liked there? Would she pursue another man like she had pursued him back then? Lin Zhe sat on the chair dejectedly. He only felt that his life was gloomy. In fact, he was worried too much. When Gu Xingyin was still on the plane, the system that had woken up from its hibernation told her what had happened to Lin Zhe. "Okay, It doesn't count as him standing me up. I won't blame him, Gu Xingyin said. The system was a little strange. Why was the host so easy to talk to this time? As expected, Gu Xingyin hadn't finished speaking. But I spent 2 years on him, and still couldn't warm up this stone. Now I don't have the patience. Gu Xingyin picked up the drink provided by the first-class cabin, and took a sip. Only know how to cherish something after losing it? I'll teach him a good lesson today. There's no such thing in the world. The system trembled silently, and lit a candle for Lindsay. It sounded like the host was angry. Gu Xingyin was really angry. If Lindsay didn't like her, then forget it. The problem was that he obviously liked her. But he was still dragging his feet for so long. If Zhong Zhonghuan wasn't Gu Xingyin, if she didn't have the system to tell her the truth, would Zhong Zhonghuan be willing to forgive Lindsay? No, she wouldn't be willing. Gu Xingyin would forgive Lindsay, but it wouldn't be so easy. He had to realize that there were some things that wouldn't just stand there and wait for him. Gray School of Design was indeed one of the top design schools in the world. Many well-known design masters came from here. The school was very busy. Gu Xingyin didn't even have time to go home for the new year for 2 whole years. In the end, Mr. Zhong flew over himself and had a reunion dinner with his daughter in a foreign country. 5 years. For the first 2 years, Gu Xingyin studied all kinds of professional knowledge in school. For the next 2 years, she followed her tutor and learned from him. In her last year, she began to design some works on her own. Zhong Zhonghuan did have some outstanding talent in the field of design. Several of her works had been recognized by masters in the industry. As a rising star in the fashion industry from the East, her reputation gradually spread in the fashion industry. She smiled and said, "Don't worry, Dad. I can stay at home for a few months." Mr. Zhong looked at his daughter and suddenly remembered something. "Have you found a boyfriend in the past few years abroad?" Gu Xingyin covered her face. "How old am I? Dad, how worried are you that I won't be able to get married?" Mr. Zhong sighed. "I'm not worried about that. I'm just," he still asked, "have you been in contact with him in the past few years?" The him he was referring to was Lindsay. Back then, Gu Xingyin had told him that the person she liked was Lindsay. In the past few years, Mr. Zhong had also admired Lindsay. However, he didn't know what was going on between the two, so he asked. Chapter 11:28. Gu Xingyin looked up and saw Lindsay's dark and deep eyes staring at her without blinking. "What do you want to tell me today? Tell me." Gu Xingyin picked up the coffee in her hand and took a sip. Lindsay thought for a moment and decided to start with the matter of him standing her up. After all, this was a misunderstanding between the two of them. Gu Xingyin listened to his story without saying a word. "So Zhan Huan, I really didn't mean to make you wait for nothing," Lindsay said anxiously. Gu Xingyin's expression didn't change after hearing all this. I know. This has nothing to do with you. "I don't blame you," she said casually. Lindsay's heart sank. To be honest, he would rather the person opposite him react more strongly after hearing his words, or even scold him, because that meant that the other party had been brooding over this matter all these years and couldn't forget him. However, Gu Xingyin's calm reaction made it seem as if the incident back then was just a small matter in her eyes, unremarkable. Then what about her feelings for him? Did it disappear with the passage of time, just like what happened to this matter? Lindsay suddenly felt that the air seemed to have thinned. He clenched the cup in his hand and asked with difficulty, "How have you been all these years?" Gu Xingyin was the opposite of her. She was extremely relaxed. "Not bad." There was silence again. Gu Xingyin slowly stirred the coffee in her hand with a coffee spoon and waited for Lindsay to speak. Lindsay paused for a moment and finally said, "Then, have you had anyone by your side all these years?" "What do you mean?" Gu Xingyin asked with a faint smile. Lindsay looked up at her. Gu Xingyin's eyes were very clear, as if there was nothing in them. But Lindsay knew that she did it on purpose. She wanted to force him to say what was in his heart. Lindsay closed his eyes and finally said the words that had been in his heart for 5 years. "I like you, Zhan Huan. Can I pursue you?" After saying that, he stared at Gu Xingyin, wanting to see his reaction. Gu Xingyin looked up at the man in front of her and sighed in her heart. It had been 5 years, but this man was still so inexperienced when it came to love. She nodded without hesitation. I don't have a boyfriend. Of course I can. Before Lindsay could rejoice, she continued. As I said back then, you pursuing me is your own business. It has nothing to do with me. She looked at Lindsay with a strange expression. If you said this to me 5 years ago, I would probably be very happy. But now, Lindsay, it's too late. No. Lindsay's gaze locked onto her. It's not too late. As long as she wasn't in love or married, he wouldn't be late. Gu Xingyin raised her wrist and looked at the time. I have to meet my teacher in the afternoon, so I can't chat with you anymore. Lindsay said. I'll drive you. Gu Xingyin shook her head. I drove here myself. I won't trouble you. Chapter 1129. Lindsay briefly recounted the conversation between the two of them. Song Tao's eyes widened. After hearing this, he didn't know why, but he suddenly felt a sense of schadenfreude. He coughed dryly and said, So it's really as I expected. As the saying goes, every dog has its day. It's your turn now. Lindsay glanced at him and frowned. Tell me, what do you think Zhang Huan means? Song Dao was about to despair at his brother's EQ. He held his forehead. Do you still need to ask? Hurry up and chase after her. Lindsay glanced at him. Of course I know. I won't give up. I'm just not sure what she means to me now. Song Dao looked at him with disappointment. I really wonder how you managed to gain a foothold in the Lin Corporation. If you brought half of your IQ in the business world to love, you and Zhong Zhanghuan probably wouldn't be like this now. If she really gave up on you and didn't like you anymore, would she still tacitly let you pursue her? With Zhang Huan's qualifications, if she didn't have feelings for you, would she have no one by her side for 5 years? This girl is obviously throwing a tantrum. There's no problem. You've wasted so many years of her time. It's only right for her to throw a tantrum and want to punish you. Song Dao egged his good friend on. This time, don't let go of this opportunity. No matter how much Zhong Zhanghuan likes you, you should really thank the heavens that a girl can do this for you. Lindsay's heart was suddenly enlightened. He said to Song Dao, Thank you, brother. When I get Zhang Huan, I'll treat you to a meal. Song Dao looked at his energetic appearance and sighed in his heart. I'm afraid you're going to suffer this time. What he said just now was indeed what he was thinking. It was just that he didn't say some things, afraid that it would dampen his good friend's enthusiasm. Based on his understanding of Zhong Zhanghuan, this girl wasn't willing to suffer losses. She had probably given Lin Zay the biggest concession in her life. Now that Lin Zay wanted to start over, it wouldn't be easy. But thinking about it from another perspective, if he, Song Dao, met someone like Lin Zay and wanted to start over? If I don't torment you until you're half dead, I won't be called Song Dao. Therefore, regarding the fate that his good friend was about to face, Song Tao expressed his love, joy, and wished that he could help see. On the other side, Lin Zay returned to the company and immediately asked his secretary to think of a way to get Gu Xingyin's group's activity plan, which was the itinerary for a period of time in the future. This kind of thing wasn't too confidential, and he could get his hands on it with some effort. However, the secretary was a little confused as he looked at the task given to him by his general manager. Could it be that he had guessed wrong? Was the general manager actually a fashion maniac? She shook her head and threw these strange thoughts out of her mind.